All right, everyone, welcome to the DBA Fundamentals Virtual Chapter Group meeting for July. And as you see here, we have the wonderful, the amazing Brent Ozar with us. I don't know, everybody's shocked about that one. Today's presentation is actually going to be called Help, because SQL Server 2008 is still here. It will be presented by Brent Ozar. I'll be turning things over to him in just a minute, but before that, we have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of. My name is Kevin Wilkie, and I am one of the chapter leaders for our DBA Fundamentals Virtual Chapter Group. You can send us any questions you have by emailing us at, and it's not actually on the screen. It is the email group you would actually send it to would be dbafundamentals@sqlpass.org, or you can get in touch with us by any of the Twitter feeds at the top of the page, right hand side of the page. Steve Cantrell, Shane Warwick, myself, and Glenda are all leaders. You can tweet us at any point. You can always get a hold of us or watch any of our fun past meetings at dbafun.org. The YouTube videos, which has all of our archives at youtube.com/user/SQLPassTV. You can tweet the entire group at @DBAFun on Twitter. You can get to our Slack channel, or you can get to us on LinkedIn. We have many things going on LinkedIn. We try to keep that rolling and fairly present. And there we go. One of our sponsors is SentryOne. Hopefully you've heard of them. They do great things such as Plan Explorer Pro, which is wonderful. If you have not used it, it is really, really wonderful for looking at Plan Explorer. There's free trials of many of their tools. There's a lot of resources that are very, very helpful at centuryone.com/resources. And as always, they have free query tuning advice at answers.sqlperformance.com. And our next sponsor is DB Watch, which has, as you see here, they have some great tools to actually go through multiple database engines to see and compare and monitor all of the stuff they have available. It's a really good tool, and I actually use it in my professional job, and it works great. I really enjoy using it myself. It's really fun. Please download, do a trial. It will definitely help you in your normal job. All right, with that, we go to the virtual groups. There are, as you see here, this is the entire list of virtual groups that exist, along with DBA Fundamentals. I'm actually a part of a number of these groups. I've done different, I've actually spoken in several of them, and I've actually watched and listened and learned from a lot of them myself. Please join as many as you can. They all do lots of great meetings that will help you learn lots of new things in different ways than you probably ever thought of before. Upcoming virtual chapter sessions, we have here a list of some of the upcoming sessions that us and some of the other groups will do. For example, here Data Architecture is doing one with Glenn Berry on how availability and disaster recovery 101. A number of other things. One I'm also looking forward to is Application Development 1 with Eugene on what's new in SQL Server 2019. That sounds like a blast, as well as one of my favorites, Eric Darling doing what else can indexes do on the 23rd. If you have not gone to a SQL Saturday around you, please go to one soon. We have on here a list of some of the ones that are in our area. I will actually be speaking at the one in Birmingham, number 899 here coming up the end of this month. After that, I believe is the one for Louisville. I'll be going to that one as well. They're all great fun. Please go out to as many SQL Saturdays as you can. They're always a blast. I do lots of networking, and lots of great fun, especially if you can meet wonderful people such as Brent Ozar. I like to throw his name in there. He always enjoys it.
I'll be at Salt Lake City too.
Really? Are you
Yep,
doing a pre-con at that or just
I
a
am. Yeah, pre-con and regular
nice?
session too.
Nice. So y'all heard it here first. Y'all be sure to go out to Salt Lake. All right, for Summit, if you have not already booked your tickets, be sure to use our discount code. It'll save you $150 off of the full price. So it'll drop it down to somewhat reasonable, $20.49, which will help you a lot. The cost of pass will increase fairly soon. So this discount will obviously help you make it a more reasonable price, and we'll be having one more drawing with our group sometime in September. So for all the people who have used our discount code, so be sure to use that discount code when you buy your ticket to Pass Summit. If you are looking for a new career as a DBA or anything that within the SQL community, be sure to go to the Pass Career Center. This will help you get that new job, help you with your resume, you name it, pretty much it will help you find it. Or if you're looking for someone to do this kind of work, Pass Career Center is one of the places to go. It'll help you out a lot, and it is, as always, anonymous, which is always great for when looking for a new job. If this session actually will be recorded, you'll be able to get it at youtube.com/user/SQLPassTV within the next few days. And then you can see Brent Ozar in all his glory there. So with that, I turn it over to Brent. Let's see if I can turn it over to Brent. There we go. Make Brent the presenter.
Survey says, show my screen number 2, share, and move this over here. Throw the PowerPoint out. Dun, 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 and we're off to the races. Good. That's sharing, and we are off. And now I'm going to take the headphones off now because I get to be the only one talking and I don't have to listen to anybody else. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about help. SQL Server 2008 is still here. And I should give you a little warning before we start. Most of the stuff that I do is very technical. This is not going to be a deeply technical session because, of course, if you are struggling with how to manage SQL Server 2008, it's currently 2019. The days of trying to get training on SQL Server 2008, they're kind of dead and gone. I know because I was there. I used to do all kinds of training on SQL Server 2008. I'm Brent Ozar, Microsoft Certified Master on SQL Server 2008. Haven't had a certification since. And these days, most of my work is focusing on emergency performance tuning, and I still get to see some SQL Server 2008, which is kind of disturbing. You are here because you're still running SQL Server 2008. Maybe you're running 2008 or 2008 R2 in production. Maybe your company doesn't have any plans to change that. The business has said that they're not really interested in spending more money in order to fix it. You're getting nervous about what's happening. You want to know what's changing over time and what you're going to be able to do about it. So let's start with what's going to change as of today. Today is July the 9th. SQL Server 2008 and 2008 R2 official support is over. And what this just means is one thing. If you hit a problem on the road while you're dealing with SQL Server 2008 or 2008 R2, you can't call Microsoft for support. I don't know a lot of people who call Microsoft for support on a daily basis for 2008 or 2008 R2. Now, granted, I don't work for Microsoft. I'm sure that Microsoft would tell you a very different story, that they still get a lot of support calls because, after all, the problems that we have on SQL Server 2008 are really no different than the problems that we have today on 2017 and 2019. Databases are corrupt. People forgot their backups. A query runs slow. We want to know how to design the right indexes. How do I set up security? But the thing is, calling Microsoft for support has really only been one way to get support anyway. You've always had lots of different options in order to get support. And I don't know about you, but like a lot of the customers that I work with, well, they're customers that I work with. They're customers that maybe they decided to call Microsoft for support once and they had a bad experience with it, or they're not getting the results as fast as they want, or they want someone on a regular basis to do things that Microsoft just doesn't want to do. So there have always been lots of options that you could pursue. You could go to dba.stackexchange.com. You could go to SQLServerCentral.com. You could go to the MSDM forums. All of that is still completely true today and tomorrow and the next day. And I know because I see questions all the time from people who are still running SQL Server 2000 and 2005 even today. Now, I will say that there are also plenty of consultants you can call, but this is not an advertisement for my services because personally, my opinion is if Microsoft can't support it, neither can I. If a company the size of Microsoft doesn't have the resources to keep enough expertise around on SQL Server 2008, that's frankly not going to be a business that I'm going to be in either. But there are plenty of other people who will be willing to take your money. What really changes when I think about what happened today with SQL Server 2008 and 2008 R2 is that one specific support option is just off the table. Now, there is an exclusion. If you're continuing to run SQL Server 2008 and 2008 R2, you can run them in Azure VMs. If you run them in Azure VMs, Microsoft will let you get the same level of support that you had before. And I have no doubt that some sales genius, and I don't use that term derogatively, I think it's actually genius, some sales genius said, hey, you know what? If we say that the only way they can get support is if they come to Azure, that could increase Azure sales. And how much does it really cost them in order to do that SQL 2008 support? All they're doing is security hot fixes. How often does that come out now? In this day and age, there haven't been a lot of security updates for SQL Server 2008 over the last several years. A couple, but not certainly a heavy duty amount of work. So I kind of get it. It makes sense for them to say, come to Azure and you can retain support, but if you go to Amazon or Google, you will lose support. So it's kind of an enticing option for them. But frankly, the kinds of companies that are still running 2008 and 2008 R2 and 2005 are still having those same problems today. Hara Prasad asks, can't we get extended support from Microsoft by paying more money? Nope, that's what ended today, is that extended support is even over. It doesn't matter how much of a billionaire you are, the only way that you're going to get support from Microsoft is to go move that into an Azure VM. The remaining options that you have, things like DBA.Stack Exchange, SQL Server Central, the MSDM forums, other consultants, they don't necessarily have service level agreements. It's not like you can post a question and guarantee that someone's going to answer your question within, say, 4 hours or 72 hours. Those options are just off the table. That was what you had from Microsoft. They also have varying qualities of answers. Look, I'm not saying that every answer from Microsoft support is perfect. It's not. We all struggle sometimes when we call over for support. But if you post questions on public sites, it can be just as dicey. People can simply ignore your questions. And I think that those kinds of questions will start to get ignored more and more over time because as time goes by, there are less and less people who have current knowledge on those older versions. I haven't done active troubleshooting on 2000 or 2005 in several years. And if somebody came to me with an urgent problem, and it doesn't matter how big of a briefcase they're waving around in front of me of money, I just wouldn't have good answers as to how they'd go about supporting those problems. There we go, next slide there. The thing is, a lot of companies just don't care. A lot of companies, the whole reason that they're using SQL Server 2000 and 2005 and 2008 and 2008 R2 isn't because they actively want it. It isn't because they're like, oh, this version, it's just like the good old days, like my 1950s Chevy Bel Air. No, they're using it because they know that this is this old, rundown, dilapidated thing. But on top of that old, rundown, dilapidated SQL Server, they're running old, rundown, dilapidated apps. They're often running applications that are from a third-party vendor, and the vendor is packed up and gone. They don't have the option to get the source code anymore. Or maybe it's an app with really diminishing value, where they're really not getting much dollars worth out of it from a business perspective, and things just continue to work fine. So why would we change anything that just continued to work fine? Lars asks a great follow-up question. He says, who used extended support anyway? I'm guessing not that many folks. SQL 2008 has been end of life for most of us for a while. Lars, you're still here. What are you doing in this webcast? This webcast is called Help, SQL Server 2008 is still here. If you're not using 2008, you should close the webcast and go on and learn something more relevant to your day-to-day job. For the rest of us, I did a poll out on our blog, so over on brentozar.com. I didn't do one live in this webcast because I didn't want to sway the results. Because of course, most of you, other than Lars, are in here, not just because I'm attractive. I don't blame you, Lars, good looking guy. It is my favorite t-shirt at the moment. But a lot of us are in here because we're running 2008. I wanted to run a poll out on the blog for just my blog readers all together to say, what is the oldest version that you're running currently today in production? And here are the results. Yes, there are people still running SQL Server 7 in production, but whenever I run polls like this, I always have a sneaking suspicion that there's somebody out there who wants to put a really old version just to kind of have a chuckle at it. Yeah, I still run SQL Server 4. No, you don't. You don't really run that in production, although I do believe that people are still running 7 in production in places. But look at the percentages, and the percentages are kind of amazing. Today, with SQL Server 2008 and 2008 R2 being out of support, that means 70% of people out in the wild are running an unsupported version of SQL Server as of today. Now, granted, inside my poll, I didn't ask how many of you are running on Azure VMs. That's because I know the reality from talking to a lot of people who work on the blog and go, no, I don't actually use Azure VMs. I just run this kind of stuff locally. But 70% is kind of a bananas number. It's clearly, flat out, no argument available, the majority of us, meaning the majority of us are still running unsupported versions of SQL Server in production. There are dozens of us, dozens. For all these companies, really, nothing changed. Like Lars says, they weren't using extended support to begin with. They just kind of had that box over in the corner that they would just deal with whenever disaster struck, but they chose to save money on development because they don't want to improve their app. They chose to save money on licensing, save money on hosting. And let's be honest, they're probably saving money on training too. They probably haven't sent you to conferences like the past summit. They probably haven't sent you to any training projects. They're just kind of keeping you around and patting you on the back because these kinds of companies, they just don't want to spend big money on licensing and infrastructure changes to SQL Server. 70% of companies are willing to roll with this risk, and that's not your fault. When the company makes an informed decision, but that's the tricky part, when the company makes an informed decision to roll with the risks, that is not your fault. But sometimes the company didn't make an informed decision because you didn't inform them exactly what you were nervous about. One of my favorite bosses ever, I mean, I like all my bosses, especially if I ever need a job again and they're going to give me a referral, but one of my favorite bosses ever would come to me, close the door and say, hey, look, I pay you for your expert advice. I need you to communicate that expert advice to me in a short, concise way. I didn't pay you to do exactly what I tell you to do. I pay you to hear your opinion from time to time, not always, and sometimes I'm going to override it, but I do need to hear your opinion. That boss would tell me, what are you nervous about? What is it that makes you so antsy about running SQL Server 2008 or 2008 R2 in production? After all, we still have that 2005 box over there in the corner. And I would get nervous because I'd say, well, if something goes wrong, I can't call Microsoft for support. I'm just basically posting a message in a forum and praying and hoping that someone's actually going to respond. And I rely on a lot of open source scripts, stuff like SP Blitz, SP Blitz Cache, Atom Mechanics SP who is active. Maybe I rely on SQL Server Management Studio and they keep improving it like crazy, but some of the features don't work with earlier versions. And maybe my skills are getting a little out of date because I'm having to support these older versions of SQL Server. Here's how that boss taught me how to fix that. I'm not a fan of productivity books. I'm not a fan of those books that are like, work smarter, not harder. Build a better work-life balance, prioritize. You know, a lot of these things are just fluff. But this one's actually awesome. I adore this book, Getting Things Done, because of the subtitle, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. It's really about understanding what you have the capability of changing and what you don't have the capability of changing. And the way that he starts, and I'm not trying to get everybody to read this book. I'm going to try to tell you all that you need to know in order to bail. If you find it interesting, you can keep going. But the way that he starts is he says, write down everything that bothers you. Write down everything that you need to do. Your mind is a terrible place to store stuff long term. You forget things all the time. You can't sort your mind the way that you would sort a spreadsheet. You can't say, show me my tasks by priority. You can't say, show me my tasks by context. You know how it is when you go home, you're still thinking for the first half hour or an hour as you leave the office, you're still thinking about things that you had to do at work. It takes you a really long time to context switch. And when you come to work from home, it takes you the first 30 to 60 minutes to really context switch back going the other way as well. You keep thinking about all the things you have going on at home. So what David Allen teaches you to do is to write down the stuff that bothers you and the things that you need to do. And then he starts having you break it up by category. So I'm going to break it up, say, by things I need to do at work, things I need to do with my code, things I need to do in my hobby projects, things I need to do with my family, my spare time, the house, whatever I need to maintain. And then when you've got it all written down, at first it seems like it's going to be really stressful, and it is, because the list of things is kind of intimidating. But when you've got this list written down, it's much easier to be at peace with the work that you have to do and the work that you can't do. I got stuff in my to-do list that's been there for years. Things that I'm like, oh, someday I should organize my office supply closet where I have like 15 years worth of USB cables. Not today, Satan. How I'm going to do that with SQL Server 2008 is I'm going to build a list of everything that I use. The things that stress me out about SQL Server 2008 is that these things may no longer work or new versions may come out that don't support SQL Server 2008. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build a little Excel spreadsheet that says, here for every one of my servers, here's the tools that are involved. Here's the operating system that it runs, like the version, the hardware that it's on, whether it's bare metal, whether it's VMware, Hyper-V, whatever. The backup software that I'm using, in case I'm using any kind of third-party products, because I care dramatically about when those stop working. The monitoring software that I use, and any applications that they run. Then I'm just going to email each vendor or look up on their website when they plan to stop supporting SQL Server 2008. I don't expect an exact date. I just want a rough idea of, is no longer supporting 2008 on your roadmap? And I'm going to dump it into one spreadsheet and send it to my manager. Because this is really the stuff that makes me unwilling or unable to sleep at night, is that things might break and I might not be officially supported across any of these. What I mean by a forward-friendly email is my goal, my best case scenario, is that when my manager opens his phone and he sees this email, he goes, oh, I don't want to have my name as just deleting this email. I'm going to go forward this to somebody else. Because when you put something down in writing and someone has to take the bullet of saying, I'm going to be the one that stops this chain and deletes it, they get nervous when the outage hits. Because when inevitably the SQL Server will stop working, the hardware will stop working, the operating system, whatever. I'm not saying that you're going to cover your rear end, but you want the nervousness to be infectious. You want it to go upstream as quickly as possible. So this email can't say things like, this company sucks, we don't put enough money into supporting our IT, this is really important, I care about it, I'm losing sleep at night. Strip away all of the emotion, all of the drama. Lars says that the manager's voice sounds like Sluggo, or was it Mr. Bill? Oh no! It needs real meaning, this email does, for the end users. You want it to be that if this email ever went in front of an end user who was experiencing the outage, they would go, why did someone delete this email? No one should have ever deleted this email. The tone of this email isn't for you, and it's not for your manager. It's for the executives, going all the way up as far as you can on the stream. And I'm going to give you an example of the kind of email that I would send about SQL Server 2008. Good morning. We have this tough issue with the point of sale system. If it goes down, our company's not going to be able to take any orders. So I haven't said what the issue is, but within the first two sentences, I've clarified that, oh my God, this is for real. This is not the DBA saying, I can't sleep at night and I need Tums. Will you hold me? This is much more about a real concern for the business. Third paragraph, it's a single point of failure. We've only got one database server and most of the components are unsupported. The operating system, SQL Server, vendor application, and backup software are all out of support. This means when it goes down, I won't have anyone that I can call for help. This seems like a pretty big risk. Is the company okay with this? You haven't pinned one person down. You haven't said, Annabelle, I told you about this 14 times over the last week and you just keep sitting on it. There's no emotion, there's no drama. It's just, hey, this is the fact about the problem that I'm up against. Is everybody okay with this? And you have to be willing, if they say yes, if someone replies back and says, yep, we're cool with it, you have to be able to sleep at night. But what this email really is it's a road sign warning of impending danger. I love this road sign. It's absolutely fantastic. Found this off of unsplash.com where you can find all kinds of cool pictures. Rattlesnakes may be found in this area. Give them distance and respect. It doesn't tell you what a rattlesnake is. It doesn't tell you what happens if a rattlesnake bites you. This is kind of common sense for people who go out in the wilderness. They should kind of vaguely know what a rattlesnake is. It's the same thing with your email, very short and very simple and clear. You want it to just describe, hey, here's the thing that I'm worried about. There are rattlesnakes over there. I want it to be as easy as possible for managers to look at this email and go, whoa, that does sound dangerous. And as soon as I go into things like, oh, if I have to call Microsoft support, they're going to ask me to apply a patch or whatever. As soon as I go into those levels of details, managers are, whoop, they're gone. Most managers, especially when I'm aiming for several layers up, they simply don't care about that level of detail. They just want to post, they want a quick sign that says, IT rattlesnakes are here. We're about to step into this area with bare feet, and this is where we're taking our point of sale system. A few slides ago, I said, if the company makes an informed decision, then you can sleep on it. I bet you haven't sent an email like this yet. So to some extent, if you don't post this sign, you were the person who ignored it. You need to get it down in writing as quickly as possible and as concisely and clearly as possible, no emotion, and just post the sign. And maybe they're going to ignore it, and that's okay. Ray says, I keep copies in my Pearl Harbor file to be used in my defense at my court-martial, just in case anything goes wrong. And for me, it's less about getting fired. It's more about whenever the time comes, if someone says, because someone will inevitably say, did y'all know about this? I can say, yes, I feel you. I'm tired of DBA standing for default blame acceptor. I want to stand right next to the user, put my arm around them, keeping personal space in mind, put my arm around them and go, oh, I feel you. I feel torn up about this. I feel the same way. I can't believe management didn't do anything about this. Roy, you remember that email I forwarded you? No? I'll go forward it out for you and fetch it up. I'm sure you forwarded it upstream, Roy. We'll go through and take care of that together. The thing is, a lot of companies really will be okay with this. Look at the top 3 rows of the poll. SQL Server 7, 2000, and 2005. 1 in 4 companies is still running these versions, and they haven't been supported in years. I don't expect this to change. Right now, we're at 70% when I factor in the new 2008 and 2008 R2 going out of support. Somewhere between 70 and 26% is where the numbers are going to drift down to over the next several years, as people who have compliance needs, legal needs, etc., will start migrating their stuff out once they start seeing presentations like these and hearing emails like yours. But sometimes you're going to send one of these emails and the company's going to forward it up a few and then reply back and go, yes, based on the investments that we made in this SQL Server and how little value we see in it going forward, we've decided that we're okay walking over here where it says danger. So now there are things that you have to do as a database administrator. Number 1, you have to start collecting your tools. Every single thing that you have, versions of SQL Server, versions of operating systems, versions of scripts, everything that you use, you need to keep as you go through and apply it, because it may not be there tomorrow. I'm going to give you a great example, and I'm going to have to step off screen in order to do it, but I got a wireless microphone. It'll keep right on going with the talking. So a few years ago, a friend of mine contacted me and she said, hey, Brent, do you have a copy of SQL Server 7? And I'm like, why on earth would I still have a copy of SQL Server 7? No one should need that anymore. And she says, well, yeah, I shouldn't need it, but here's the deal. There was a database server over in the closet that no one really knew about. And one day, not only did they not know about the server, they didn't know about the closet. One day maintenance came in and they walled over the closet. They drywalled over the entire closet because everybody said they no longer needed whatever was in there. Drywalled right over it. There was a SQL server inside. And that SQL server kept on running for years. And eventually it stopped running. And when it stopped running, this friend of mine who's a database administrator had to rebuild it from scratch. Someone called her up and said, hey, do you know about that accounting SQL server that deals with accounts receivable? She was, no, what are you talking about? She says, well, yeah, there's one over over on the third floor in building B. They actually had to go beat through the wall to go find out why it wasn't responding to pings because no one knew where it was. They tracked down network cables to see that it went into this closet. And when they bring it back, the hard drives were shot. Thankfully, there were backups that were going to a network share, but she had to install SQL Server 7, and the installs were long gone, and you couldn't find it online. I guess there was some kind of problem with Microsoft and Oracle and the Java that was included inside here. So we actually had to go on to Amazon and eBay in order to get old versions of SQL Server, ordered it from multiple places just to get it in as quickly as possible as we were trying to contact people, trying to find people who had it. So that's the story of how I ended up with SQL Server 7. That vendor only has supported SQL Server 7 still even to that day. You want to make sure that you have all of the installs that you need in order to get yourself out of a jam. And that even comes down to things like our first responder kit, Atom Mechanics SPU is active, cumulative updates for SQL Server. If you need a specific hotfix or a CU level, you need to start accumulating those like some kind of hoarder and just hope you don't end up on television. When you do hit problems, your next job is to be really frank. You never want to use the term "I told you so" because it leaves a really bad feeling in the mouth. And I want to be more collaborative. I want to work together with people. I don't want them to see me as the enemy. And if I say, well, I told you it was going to suck, well, like you told us all kinds of things would suck, and they hardly ever did. So there's this great saying in politics, never let a good crisis go to waste. So an example of a great crisis is, let's say that I'm having a deadlocking problem. I might send an email saying, hey, we're having this really bad deadlocking problem on sales 4. Normally I'd use this stored procedure SP Blitzlock to track it down. It's totally free, it works really well, but it only works for SQL Server 2012 and newer because it only supports versions that Microsoft supports. We're on a version that Microsoft doesn't support, and most of the community tools that are out there don't actually work. So I'm going to start doing my research. I'm going to start going back through the golden oldies of my library, and maybe I'm going to be able to track something down. I can't make any promises, and I can't call Microsoft for support. Should we, as this gets done, should we make a plan on how we're going to upgrade this to get to a supported level so you don't have an outage this bad? And I'm not saying that I would permanently work or that I would purposely work slowly and sandbag the solution. That's not a good idea either. I still want to work with urgency, but I just never want to waste a good crisis. I'm still going to try to fix it. I'm still going to try to be the hero because that's addictive, being the hero and fixing something that no one else is supposed to fix. But you just got to remember, you may not be able to fix the next one. The next one may be beyond your skill set's capabilities in order to do. Beat says, Beat is his actual name. Well, I mean, I say it's his actual name. He's in GoToWebinar, so it could be, Pat McCann, and I wouldn't know. Beat says, that's why I'm trying to keep ISO images of all my old software setups. Yeah, come on, those are your MP3s. Let's be honest. Don't try to take credit for your space over on the backup drive. Those are all your favorite movies. Your job as a database administrator is to keep posting signs, is to keep going through and saying, hey, here's this problem. Because sooner or later, when you hit a really hard to fix issue, it won't be easy to fix with SQL Server 2008 or earlier versions. Eric Darling's written several great blog posts about complex problems that SQL Server 2012, 2014, and 2016 have made so much easier to fix. All of these are just great examples when I'm working with management of really hard problems that I've run into that have been trivially easy to catch on 2012, 2014, and 2016, but doggone near impossible to catch on older versions of SQL Server. Just because the company is still only using those older versions, that doesn't mean I shouldn't keep my skills sharp on newer versions. I always want to learn the tools that are working with whatever's my current production version and my newest production version in-house. Even if I only have one 2017 version, I'm going to learn all the tips and tricks that I can to make that 2017 SQL Server faster. I don't want to say things like, well, we're not allowed to use extended events around here because I still have a 2005 box. No, embrace the newer tools and technologies, but then you never use that to miss a chance to keep that good crisis useful by saying, oh man, that 2005 box having all kinds of problems. It'd be way easier to fix if it was on a supported version. Let me tell you about all these cool tricks that I got on current versions of SQL. Oh, you don't want to hear about the current tricks? You want to hear about the tricks that work with Grandpa's SQL Server? Oh, there aren't any. That's why there's new versions. The new versions make Grandpa, you wouldn't drive Grandpa's car, would you? I mean, you might drive it on Saturday to a parade or something, but you wouldn't use it to get to work. Why would you drive Grandpa's SQL Server? And you want to kind of distance this from you versus what the business decides to do. The business is always going to decide to save money when they can. The business is always going to decide to avoid risks whenever they can. But if you get to the point where the company is telling you, all we have is unsupported versions, like all we have is 2000, 2005, and 2008, now you're in an interesting problem. And I'm not saying that you should go get another job right away, because I don't think that that's almost ever true. I don't think there are any black and white rules about, if you see this, you should definitely go get another job immediately, because all of us have tough decisions to make. I personally kept a job that I didn't like because I had family needs or location needs, personal things that kept me to one particular job, somebody's health insurance, or maybe the pay was just so good that I couldn't ignore it. We all have to make some of these compromises from time to time. And what the business is effectively choosing to do is they're choosing to say, we're going to pay you instead of paying Microsoft. They're looking at two things here, and they're saying, well, we could either pay Microsoft $250,000 worth of licensing, or we could pay you to manage what we have. That's actually not a bad choice. There's part of me that says I can see why people would stick around in a job that's only got 2008. It's a very secure job because your opportunity cost there is fantastic, but your opportunity cost on that only works as long as companies are still using the version that you're on. If you specialize in SQL Server 2008 problems, you still do have a pretty good chunk of the job market. It's not 100%, but what you're effectively saying is that I would rather work for that 70% of the company, maybe even that bottom 26% of the companies. But as you get to some of those older versions, don't think for 1 minute that those are active jobs that you can go out and get today. There aren't a lot of companies who go, man, we got all this work that needs to be done on our 2000 and 2005 boxes. We have so much query tuning and index tuning. No, they're keeping those boxes around because they're on life support. They're boat anchors. They're just sitting around in the corner. People aren't actively working really hard on that. Those aren't the good jobs that you want. The good jobs that you want are the ones on the bottom, the ones where the oldest version that they have is 2016 or 2017. Those are awesome companies, the ones who are pushing the limits as fast as they can, getting to new versions, investing in their SQL servers, investing in their hardware, investing in their applications, and investing in their people, AKA you. Don't be stuck at a company that's still clinging to things on really old versions of SQL Server, because odds are, just as they're clinging to these old versions to save money on hardware, licensing, and hosting, they're probably also saving money on you. So to recap what we talked about inside here, your first mission, if you're still running SQL Server 2008, is use the getting things done philosophy of prioritizing, making a list of exactly what you have, the reasons why you can't sleep at night, and then prioritizing those in order so that you know what you have to go tackle. Then write an easy to forward email to your manager saying, here's exactly why I can't sleep at night, here's what I want you to go fix. And you don't say it as, here's what I want you to go fix. You say it as, is this okay with the business? We can't take sales if the server goes down and it's completely unsupported. Is this okay with the business? And I love using terms like the business or the company because it's bigger than a manager. It lets people keep forwarding it upstream very quickly. Start keeping backups. Whether your company says it's okay or not, you're still on those versions today. Start keeping backups of all the scripts, tools, and ISOs that you use in order to do an install, because sooner or later you're going to have to do an install like that. And if you're only supporting SQL Server 2008 and nothing else, you're making a choice. You're not making a choice as to whether or not the company only runs 2008, but you are making a choice that that's your job and your career. And you may have a dramatically harder time getting your next position if the resume only lists versions that were released a decade ago and are out of production support. So that's everything that I wanted to talk with y'all about today. Feel free to ask any questions that you want over in questions. Lars says extended events, 640 lines in SQL Profiler ought to be enough for everybody. I like extended events in the sense that when I need to get something extremely fine-grained, something extremely small out, it seems to work pretty well. Mark asks, he says, upgrading from 2005 to 2000, or from 2005 and 2008 this year, should I wait for 2019 or should I go with 2017? I think Microsoft really missed an opportunity here. If they would have released 2019 before 2005 or 2008 support went out, I know they disagree with this. A lot of friends of mine at Microsoft are like, you should have planned your upgrade project years ago. You should have already been covered by it. You shouldn't be waiting until the last minute. And if we release 2019 right now, I don't know why they sound Southern all of a sudden. If you release 2019 right now, you still wouldn't be able to test everything in time, because Microsoft mistakenly believes that all of you out there are testing your workloads and testing all of your queries on every new version of SQL Server. I know how y'all work. Y'all do it live. Y'all will be like, there's a new preview, throw it in production, let's go. So my advice to you would be, I wouldn't jump to 2019. I would start making the plan to go to 2017 right now. 2017 is phenomenal. It's great. There's nothing wrong with it. It works fine. It's well tested. It's down to like updates every 60 days, let's say. So go ahead, ship for 2017. Don't gamble on something that you haven't run out there and hardly anybody has really done that much production testing on yet. Kyle says, Kyle asks, demise of the, Kyle says, I saw this article regarding the death of the DBA and it was a DB2 thing. Wondering what your thoughts are on the topic, because it seems to be a topic that keeps popping up all over the place. I'll tell you what, whenever an analyst or a thought leader wants to make headlines and get lots of clicks, what they do is write about how automation is taking someone's job. Oh, automation's going to take your job. You're going to be jobless. And of course, immediately people start clicking on it. People like you, Kyle. So the thing is, if you read through that, it's still not fixing backups. It's still not fixing query tuning. It's still not fixing security permissions. It's still not fixing patching. Make a list of the things that you actually do during a given day. Go inventory the help desk tickets that you've had to go tackle. And the stuff that rocket surgeon is writing about ain't even on the list. So whenever I see people going, oh, database administrators, them's doomed, I also go, oh, mentally, tell me what you think a DBA does. And then when I hear them say, I go, so you're writing about someone whose job description you don't even understand. Gotcha. I'm going to put you in the bozo bin. Lars says 2017 sucks though. 2017 cumulative updates suck, lots of hot fixes. If you think that has lots of hot fixes, wait till 2019, where of course on the new fast train releases, you're talking about CUs every 30 days. Raja says, what happens to databases which are running in 2012 with 20, what should I do for different compatibility levels, basically? Folks, when y'all write questions, you gotta like condense them down. Don't write a letter to your grandma inside there. So what compatibility level should you pick? Whenever you go to a newer version of SQL Server, stay with the same compat level that you're on today on the new version of SQL Server. Stay there for a good 2, 3, 4 weeks. Because what happens is whenever you go to a new version of SQL Server, everybody wants to play pin the blame on the database. Oh man, Emerson. Why am I totally into Southern? I come from the South, so I guess I'm using that accent a lot. And maybe I'm not good at like Boston accents or Seattle. I don't know what the Seattle accent. I know Minnesota. Oh, sure, Margin. Oh, my query. It used to work. I'm not even going to try. They tell you that their query used to work fantastic on SQL Server 1. They're like, oh, this always used to work fantastic, but now in today's new version, it runs terribly. The reality is their query probably always ran terribly. It's just they're trying to pin the blame on the database. Stay on the old compat level to minimize the level of troubleshooting you do. And if you decide you want to go to the new compat level, this is where you have to do a whole lot of query testing to make sure that, especially as you go to 2014, 16, 17, that the compat level didn't really screw with your query plans. That's where you end up having to invest way more time and work. And of course, that's way more work than I can go into inside of this webcast. There have been other webcasts, though, about things like query store. If you go back into DBA Fundamentals past webcasts on the YouTube channel, you can look at a past webcast on query store to see how you turn that on, start capturing your execution plans, and then you can see whether things got better or worse. Well, thanks a lot, everybody, for hanging out with me today. Hope y'all had fun and learned something, and hope that you've been using those unsupported versions of SQL Server. Good luck. Write those emails, and let's see how you do. Adios, y'all.